The coffee in Commander Jake Morrison's cup had gone cold hours ago, but he kept sipping it anyway. Station Omega-7 floated in the black emptiness at the edge of human space, where nothing interesting ever happened. Jake had been running this monitoring station for 3 years, watching empty space and filing reports that nobody read. Another quiet night in paradise, he muttered, looking out at the stars through the main viewing port. His crew of 12 worked at their stations, checking sensors and running system diagnostics. It was boring work, but someone had to watch. The Frontier Chief Petty Officer Ben Carter sat at the main sensor station, his fingers dancing across the control panel. Ben had been doing this job longer than anyone else on the station. He could spot a space rock from 1,000,000 miles away and tell you exactly what it was made of. That's why Jake trusted him completely. "Commander," Ben said suddenly, his voice sharp and focused, "I'm getting something weird out here." Jake set down his coffee cup and walked over to Ben's station. The sensor display showed a small blip moving through space, but something about it didn't look right. "What kind of weird?" "Well, sir, it's moving fast, really fast. Faster than anything should be able to move." Ben touched a few controls and the display zoomed in. "And the energy signature looks human, but I can't match it to any ship in our database." Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez looked up from her communication station. Amy was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes and a quick mind. She specialized in alien languages, though they'd never encountered any real aliens out here. "Human signature? Are you sure?" Ben nodded, frowning at his screen. "The fusion drive pattern matches our technology, but the power output is impossible. This thing is putting out energy levels that should melt any ship we've ever built." Jake felt a cold knot form in his stomach. In 15 years of deep space service, he'd learned to trust his instincts. And right now, his instincts were screaming that something was very wrong. "How fast is it moving?" "0.7 light speed, sir, and it's not slowing down." That was impossible. Human ships could barely reach 0.1 light speed, and only for short bursts. Whatever this thing was, it shouldn't exist. Jake turned to Dr. Lisa Park, who was bent over her analysis station. Lisa was the smartest person on the station, a specialist in alien technology and biology. If anyone could figure this out, it was her. "Lisa, what do you make of this?" Dr. Park looked up, her face pale. She had been studying the sensor data for the past few minutes, and Jake could see the confusion in her eyes. "Commander, this doesn't make sense. The ship is definitely human-built, but the technology readings are completely wrong. The hull material isn't matching any known alloy, and the energy output suggests they're using some kind of fusion system that we haven't invented yet. Could it be experimental? Something the military is testing?" Jake asked. "Not unless they've made breakthroughs that violate the laws of physics," Lisa replied. "And there's something else. I'm detecting life signs aboard the vessel." "How many?" "About 50 people. But, Commander, the bio readings are strange. They register as human, but there are differences. Subtle ones, but they're there." Jake felt the knot in his stomach tighten. He'd heard stories about secret military projects, but nothing that could explain what they were seeing. "Amy, try to make contact with them." Lieutenant Rodriguez nodded and began working at her station. She opened communication channels and sent out standard greeting messages in a dozen different languages. For long minutes, there was no response. Then her board lit up with an incoming transmission. "I'm getting something, sir," Amy said, excitement in her voice, "but it's heavily encrypted. The signal is using human protocols, but they're modified in ways I've never seen before. Can you decode it?" "I'm trying, but this is unlike anything in our books. The encryption is based on our systems, but it's far more advanced." Amy worked for several minutes, her fingers flying over the controls. Finally, she looked up with a confused expression. "I've got part of it, Commander. Just a fragment, but it's clear. What does it say?" Amy hesitated, as if she didn't believe what she was reading. "The experiment worked. We're coming home." The bridge fell silent. Jake stared at the main screen, watching the unknown vessel approach their position. It was still moving impossibly fast, but now it seemed to be slowing down. Whatever these people were, wherever they'd come from, they were heading straight for human space. "Ben, how long before they reach us?" Jake asked. "At current speed, about 6 hours, sir." "But Commander, there's something else. Long-range sensors are picking up more activity behind them. Way behind them, maybe several light years out. Something big is following their trail." Jake closed his eyes and took a deep breath. In all his years of service, he'd never faced anything like this. Unknown human ships with impossible technology, cryptic messages about experiments, and something large following them through space. None of it made sense, but all of it felt dangerous. "Amy, send a priority message to Colonial Command. Tell them we have an unidentified human vessel approaching at high speed, using technology that doesn't exist in our database. Include all sensor data and that partial message." Jake paused, thinking about what else to include. "And tell them we may have a bigger problem coming behind it." "Yes, sir." Message sent. Jake turned back to the main screen, watching the approaching vessel. Whatever was about to happen, he had the feeling that nothing would ever be the same again. The unknown ship continued its approach, carrying secrets that might change everything humanity thought it knew about itself. "All stations remain alert," Jake announced to his crew. "We're about to make history, one way or another." Admiral Kate Sullivan was reviewing supply reports when the priority message from Station Omega-7 arrived. She had been running Colonial Command for 8 years, dealing with everything from pirate attacks to equipment failures. But as she read Commander Morrison's report, she felt something she hadn't experienced in decades: genuine fear. "Get me Colonel Hayes and Dr. Webb immediately," she told her aide. "Emergency meeting in Conference Room Alpha, and wake up Captain Turner. I don't care if she's sleeping." 20 minutes later, the 4 most important people in Colonial Command sat around the conference table. The holographic display showed the sensor data from Station Omega-7, with the mysterious vessel's impossible flight path traced in red light. Colonel Ryan Hayes was the first to speak. He ran the intelligence division and knew every secret project in human space. "Admiral, I've checked our databases 3 times. This ship doesn't match any current or planned military vessel. The technology readings don't match anything we have in development." Dr. Alan Webb leaned forward, studying the energy readings with fascination and worry. He had designed some of humanity's fastest ships, but nothing came close to what they were seeing. The fusion output alone should have destroyed any known hull material. Whatever they're using for power, it's at least 50 years ahead of our current technology. Captain Nicole Turner sat quietly, her military bearing evident even in the early morning hours. She commanded the heavy cruiser UCS Defender, the most powerful warship in the fleet. "What are your orders, Admiral? Do we intercept or observe?" Admiral Sullivan stood and paced to the window overlooking Mars. The red planet's surface stretched out below, dotted with the lights of human colonies. Everything they had built could be at risk if they made the wrong decision. "Ryan, tell me about any deep space missions that might explain this." Hayes hesitated, his face troubled. "There is one possibility, but it's classified at the highest levels. Project Exodus." "I've never heard of it," Turner said. "Most people haven't. It was launched 50 years ago, during the early expansion period. The mission was theoretical: send a small fleet to establish a colony beyond known space, using experimental technology. The volunteers knew they might never return home. Dr. Webb looked up from the sensor data. What kind of experimental technology? Advanced. Fusion drives, new hull materials, and some theoretical life support systems. The project was led by Captain Steve Parker, one of our best deep space explorers at the time. Hayes pulled up old files on his personal tablet. The mission launched with 3 ships and about 200 volunteers. They were heading for a system 30 light years away. And, Sullivan prompted, they disappeared. We lost contact after the first year. Officially, the mission was declared lost with all hands. But the timeline matches. If somehow they succeeded in reaching their destination and spent decades there, this could be their return. Turner studied the flight path on the display. The trajectory does suggest they're coming from outside human space, but that doesn't explain the impossible technology readings. Dr. Webb was running calculations on his tablet. If this is Project Exodus returning, they've made incredible advances. The energy efficiency alone suggests they've solved problems we're still working on. But how did they do it with 1930s technology? Admiral Sullivan returned to her seat. The implications were staggering. If these were human colonists returning with advanced technology, it could revolutionize their civilization. But if they were something else wearing human disguises, the threat was unimaginable. There's something else, Hayes said quietly. The partial message Commander Morrison intercepted. The experiment worked. We're coming home. What experiment? And why are they coming back now, after 50 years? The room fell silent as everyone considered the possibilities. Finally, Turner spoke up. Admiral, we need to intercept them before they reach the inner colonies. If they're hostile, we can't let them get close to populated systems. And if they're... Really, are people returning home? Dr. Webb asked. Then we welcome them back and learn from their discoveries, Sullivan replied. But we approach with caution. Nicole, I want you to take a small fleet and intercept them. Make contact, verify their identity, and assess their intentions. Turner nodded. What are my rules of engagement? Sullivan considered carefully. The decision she made now could affect the future of humanity. Your primary mission is communication and verification. Try to establish peaceful contact. But Nicole, if they show any signs of hostility, or if you determine they're not human, you have authorization to use deadly force to protect the colonies. Understood, Admiral. Dr. Webb looked troubled. What if they are human, but changed somehow? The bio-readings from Morrison's station suggest something different about them. That's what we need to find out, Sullivan said. Ryan, I want a complete review of the Exodus mission files. Find out everything you can about their technology, their destination, and their crew. Alan, work with your team to understand how they could have achieved these performance levels. And Nicole, choose your best ships and crews. This could be first contact with something we've never encountered before. As the meeting broke up, Admiral Sullivan remained at the conference table, staring at the display showing the approaching vessel. In her years of command, she had faced many challenges, but nothing like this. The ship was clearly human in origin, but everything about it suggested technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. Captain Turner paused at the door. Admiral, what if this changes everything we know about ourselves? Sullivan looked up at her most trusted ship commander. Then we adapt, as humans always have. But first, we find out the truth. Turner saluted and left to prepare her fleet. Within hours, the most powerful warships in the human fleet would be racing toward an encounter that could reshape their understanding of what it meant to be human. Admiral Sullivan stood alone in the conference room, watching the red dot on the display continue its impossible journey toward home. Whatever these people had discovered out there in the dark, whatever experiment they had conducted, it was about to change everything. She only hoped humanity was ready for what was coming. Captain Nicole Turner stood on the bridge of the UCS Defender, watching the unknown vessel approach through the darkness of space. Her small fleet of 3 ships had been waiting here for 6 hours, positioned between the mysterious craft and the Jupiter system. Whatever happened next would determine the fate of millions of people in the inner colonies. "Contact in 30 minutes, reported her weapons officer. "The vessel is slowing down, but it's still moving faster than anything we've ever seen." Turner nodded, keeping her expression calm despite the tension she felt. Beside her, Lieutenant Commander Gary Lewis monitored the communications array. "Any response to our hailing signals?" "Nothing yet, Captain. But I'm detecting energy buildups that suggest they're preparing to transmit." The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, all of them aware that they were about to make history. Turner had chosen her best people for this mission, knowing that whatever they discovered here would change everything. "Captain," called out Ensign Betty Shaw from the sensor station, "I'm getting detailed scans of their ship now. It's definitely human in design, but the materials are unlike anything in our database. The hull appears to be some kind of advanced alloy that's both incredibly strong and lightweight." Turner studied the main display as the unknown vessel came into visual range. It looked human-built, but sleek and advanced in ways that seemed impossible. The ship was about the same size as her own heavy cruiser, but its lines were smoother, more elegant. Strange energy patterns flowed along its hull like veins of light. "Incoming transmission," Lewis announced suddenly. "They're using standard human protocols, but with modifications I've never seen before." "Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed the image of a man in what appeared to be a Colonial Fleet uniform. But something about him was different. His eyes seemed brighter, more alert, and there was a quality to his movements that suggested enhanced reflexes and awareness. "This is Captain Steve Parker of the UCS Pioneer," the man said, his voice clear and strong. "I apologize for our unannounced approach, but we have urgent information for Colonial Command." Turner felt a chill run down her spine. Steve Parker was the name Colonel Hayes had mentioned, the commander of the Lost Exodus mission. But that man would be over 80 years old by now. The person on her screen looked no older than 45. "Captain Parker, this is Captain Nicole Turner of the UCS Defender. Colonial Command sent us to intercept and identify your vessel. According to our records, you and your ship were lost 50 years ago." Parker smiled, and there was something both familiar and alien about the expression. "We weren't lost, Captain Turner. We found something incredible. But before we explain, I need you to understand that everything is about to change. For all of humanity." Behind Parker, Turner could see other crew members moving about their bridge. They all had the same enhanced quality she noticed in Parker: quicker movements, brighter eyes, and alertness that seemed beyond normal human capability. "Captain Parker, I need you to maintain your current position while we verify your identity and assess your intentions," Turner said formally. "Of course. But Captain, we don't have much time. Long-range sensors should be detecting activity behind us. We weren't the only ones to make this journey home." Turner looked at her sensor officer, who nodded grimly. "Confirmed, Captain. There are massive energy readings approximately 4 light years behind the Pioneer's position. Whatever it is, it's big, and it's following their trail." Parker's expression became serious. "Captain Turner, may I bring a small team aboard your ship? There are things we need to discuss face-to-face, and some explanations require demonstration." Every instinct Turner had told her this was dangerous, but she also sensed that Parker was telling the truth about the urgency of the situation. "Very well. Small shuttle, maximum 3 people, no weapons." 20 minutes later, Turner waited in her main conference room as Parker and 2 of his officers came aboard. The moment they entered the room, she could see that they were different. They moved with a fluid grace that was clearly superhuman, and their eyes seemed to take in every detail of their surroundings with impossible speed. Captain Turner, allow me to introduce Dr. Maria Santos, our Chief Science Officer, and Lieutenant Commander Tony Mitchell, my first officer, Parker said as they took seats around the conference table. Dr. Santos was a woman in her apparent 30s, with the same enhanced alertness as the others. Captain Turner, what we're about to tell you will be difficult to believe. 50 years ago, our mission reached the planet Kepler 442b, 30 light years from Earth. What we found there changed everything. What did you find? Turner asked. An ancient alien installation, Parker replied. Technology left behind by a civilization that died out millions of years ago. The facility was dormant, but it responded to human presence. It was designed to enhance whatever intelligent species discovered it. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell leaned forward. The technology didn't just improve our ships, Captain. It improved us. We're still human, but we're more than we were when we left Earth. Turner studied their faces, looking for signs of deception, but finding none. What kind of enhancement? Dr. Santos answered. Increased physical capabilities, extended lifespans, enhanced mental processing. The alien technology works at a cellular level, optimizing human biology for peak performance. We can think faster, react quicker, and live longer than normal humans. But there's a cost, Parker added. The enhancement is permanent and irreversible. And there's something else. The alien race that built the technology was destroyed by something they called the Devourers, a species that consumes entire civilizations, leaving nothing behind. Turner felt her blood turn cold. And they're coming here? The activation of the alien technology sends out a signal across space. The Devourers follow that signal to find new civilizations to consume. They're approximately 3 months behind us, traveling in a massive fleet that makes our combined navies look like toys. The conference room fell silent as Turner absorbed this information. If these people were telling the truth, humanity faced the greatest threat in its history. But could she trust them? Were they really still human? Or had they become something else entirely? Captain Parker, assuming what you're telling me is true, what do you propose we do? Parker met her eyes directly. The alien technology can be shared, Captain. We can enhance more humans, give them the capabilities needed to fight the Devourers. But the choice has to be voluntary, and once made, it cannot be undone. Turner looked at each of the enhanced humans in turn. They appeared sincere, even desperate to help. But the implications of what they were offering were staggering. This enhancement technology, it would change what it means to be human. Yes, Dr. Santos said simply. But the alternative is extinction. The Devourers have never been defeated by an unenhanced species. We're offering humanity the chance to evolve, to become something capable of survival. Turner activated her communication. Link to the bridge. Lieutenant Commander Lewis, send a priority message to Colonial Command. Tell Admiral Sullivan that we need her here immediately, and inform her that we're facing a threat that makes everything else look insignificant. As Turner ended the transmission, she looked back at Parker and his crew. The future of humanity might depend on trusting these enhanced beings who claim to still be human. But with an alien invasion fleet approaching, what choice did they have? Admiral Kate Sullivan arrived at the rendezvous point 12 hours later aboard her flagship, the UCS Command. The Jupiter system stretched out around them, with the gas giant's massive form casting shadows across the assembled fleet. She had brought her best advisors and most trusted officers, knowing that the decisions made here would shape humanity's future. Dr. Helen Cooper sat across from Captain Parker in the main conference room of Sullivan's flagship. She was Earth's leading expert on genetic enhancement and had spent years studying the ethical implications of human modification. Her face showed deep concern as she listened to Parker's explanation of the enhancement process. Captain Parker, what you're describing goes beyond simple genetic modification, Dr. Cooper said. You're talking about fundamental changes to human biology. Changes that could create two separate species. Parker nodded patiently. Dr. Cooper, I understand your concerns. We had the same fears when we first encountered the catalyst technology. But we've lived with these enhancements for 30 years now. We're still human. We still feel, think, and dream like humans. We're just better at it. General Frank Davis, sitting at the far end of the table, slammed his hand down hard. Better at it? You're talking about creating superhuman beings who could dominate normal humans. This is exactly the kind of genetic supremacy we've fought against for centuries. Dr. Maria Santos, who had remained quiet during most of the discussion, finally spoke up. General Davis, with respect, you're missing the point. In 3 months, a fleet of alien ships will arrive here with the sole purpose of destroying every human being in existence. Normal human technology cannot stop them. We've seen what they're capable of. Admiral Sullivan studied the holographic display showing long-range sensor data. The Devourer fleet was still distant, but the energy readings were enormous. Hundreds of ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Captain Parker, show us again what your enhanced abilities can do. Parker stood and walked to the room's control panel. Without touching any buttons, the lights dimmed and the display changed to show detailed technical specifications. The enhancement allows direct interface with compatible technology. Our reaction times are 5 times faster than normal humans. Our strength and endurance are doubled. Most importantly, we can process information and make decisions at speeds that match the Devourer technology. Lieutenant Commander Tony Mitchell added, we've also developed weapons and ship systems that only enhanced humans can operate effectively. The neural interface required is too complex for unmodified human brains to handle. Dr. Cooper leaned forward. What about the psychological effects? Surely changes this dramatic must affect your mental state. They do, Parker admitted. We see the world differently now. Patterns and connections that were invisible before become clear. We can anticipate problems and solutions in ways that seem almost like prediction. But our core values, our humanity, remains unchanged. General. Davis stood up angrily. Core values? You've turned yourselves into something else entirely. How do we know you won't decide that normal humans are inferior and need to be replaced? The room fell silent. It was the question everyone had been thinking, but afraid to ask. Parker looked around the table at each person before answering. Because we remember what it was like to be normal humans. Because many of us have children back on Kepler 442b, who we hope will have the choice we're offering you. Because despite our enhancements, we still need normal humans to be the heart and soul of our civilization. Admiral Sullivan had been quiet during most of the discussion, but now she spoke. Captain Parker, if we decide to accept your offer, how many people could be enhanced? The process requires significant resources and time. We could probably enhance a few thousand people, initially, with more following as we establish production facilities for the catalyst technology. But Admiral, you need to understand, this isn't just about creating enhanced soldiers. The people who undergo the process will need to be volunteers who fully understand what they're choosing. Dr. Santos pulled up medical data on her tablet. The enhancement process has a mortality rate of about 15%. Not everyone's body can handle the changes, and those who survive are permanently altered. There's no going back. Captain Turner, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. What happens to the people who choose not to be enhanced? Will they become second-class citizens in this new world you're creating? Parker's expression became sad. Captain Turner, That's the hardest part of what we're offering. The enhanced humans and normal humans can't live together long term. The risk of accidental contamination is too high. The catalyst technology is contagious under certain conditions. The implications hit everyone in the room at the same time. If humanity accepted the enhancement, they would be dividing into two separate groups that could never reunite. General Davis sat back down heavily. So we're not just talking about fighting aliens. We're talking about the end of humanity as we know it. No, Admiral Sullivan said firmly. We're talking about humanity choosing to evolve in order to survive. The question is whether we have the courage to make that choice. Dr. Cooper shook her head. Admiral, we're talking about fundamentally changing what it means to be human. Some people will see this as salvation, others as betrayal of everything we stand for. And if we don't choose enhancement, we all die when the devourers arrive, Parker said quietly. We've seen what happens to civilizations that refuse to evolve. Nothing survives. Admiral Sullivan stood and walked to the viewing port, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was approaching with the power to destroy everything humanity had built. Behind her, she could hear the continued debate between her advisors, but she knew the real decision was hers to make. How long do we have to decide? She asked without turning around. The Devourer fleet will be here in 3 months, Parker replied. But if you're going to enhance people, we need to start immediately. The process takes time, and the enhanced. Humans will need training to use their new abilities effectively. Sullivan turned back to face the room. I'm going to offer the enhancement to volunteers. Military personnel first, then civilians who meet the psychological and physical requirements. But I want to be clear, this is a choice, not an order. No one will be forced to undergo the process. General Davis shook his head. Admiral, you're making a mistake. This could tear our civilization apart. General, our civilization will definitely be torn apart if we're all dead, Sullivan replied. At least this way, some part of humanity will survive. Dr. Cooper looked troubled. What about the people who choose not to be enhanced? What happens to them? Parker answered quietly. They stay in the Sol system, protected by the enhanced humans who go out to fight the Devourers. If we succeed, normal humanity continues to exist just separately from us. Admiral Sullivan nodded. Then that's our choice. We offer enhancement to volunteers, and we prepare for the fight of our lives. Captain Parker, how do we begin? As the meeting continued into the night, humanity began its transformation into something new. The choice had been made, but the consequences would reshape their species forever. 3 months later, Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a ship he barely recognized. The UCS Guardian looked like his old station, but every system had been rebuilt with catalyst technology. The walls pulsed with energy patterns that responded to his thoughts, and the weapon systems were unlike anything humanity had ever built before. Jake was one of the first volunteers for the enhancement process. He had survived the transformation, though many of his friends had not. The 15% mortality rate that Dr. Santos had mentioned proved to be accurate. But those who survived were changed in ways that went beyond the physical. Contact. In 30 minutes, reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. She had also chosen enhancement, driven by her desire to communicate with the alien fleet if possible. Her voice was different now, carrying harmonics that normal human ears couldn't detect. The Devourer fleet is massive, Commander. Over 300 ships. Jake nodded, feeling the flow of information through his enhanced nervous system. Around the Sol system, 50 enhanced humans commanded ships powered by catalyst technology. It seemed like a tiny force against the approaching alien armada, but Jake knew they were more capable than any normal human fleet could be. Dr. Lisa Park worked at the science station. her enhanced mind processing data at incredible speeds. She had volunteered for enhancement to study the alien technology, and now she served as the fleet's primary analyst. Commander, I'm detecting weapon signatures that match the descriptions from Captain Parker's data. These ships are designed for planetary destruction. On Earth, Admiral Sullivan coordinated the defense from Colonial Command. She had chosen not to undergo enhancement, believing that normal humans needed leadership they could trust. Her voice came through the communication system with calm authority. All enhanced vessels, this is command. The civilian population has been evacuated to underground shelters. You are free to engage the enemy without concern for surface damage. Jake looked around his bridge at the other enhanced humans who had volunteered for this mission. They moved with fluid precision, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to operate systems that would overwhelm normal human minds. But despite their improvements, Jake could see the fear in their eyes. They were still human enough to be afraid. Captain. Steve Parker's voice came through on the command frequency. All ships, this is the Pioneer. Remember your training. Enhanced humans can react faster than the Devourer technology, but only if we work together. Trust your instincts and trust each other. The alien fleet emerged from hyperspace like a dark cloud spreading across the stars. Each Devourer ship was enormous, some of them larger than Earth's moon. They moved with purpose toward the inner planets, their weapons charging with energy that could crack worlds. Engaging the enemy, Jake announced, feeling his ship respond to his mental commands. The Guardian leaped forward with acceleration that would have killed any normal human crew. Around him, the other enhanced vessels spread out in patterns too complex for unenhanced minds to follow. The first exchange of fire lit up space with energies that outshone the sun. Devourer weapons lashed out with beams that could cut through normal ship hulls like paper. But the catalyst-enhanced vessels danced between the attacks, their hulls deflecting damage that should have destroyed them instantly. Amy's enhanced communication abilities allowed her to coordinate with the other ships at speeds faster than normal radio. Multiple targets locked. Enhanced weapons are having effect, but they're adapting to our attack patterns. Jake watched as Dr. Park's fingers flew over her console, her enhanced mind processing battle data and predicting enemy movements. Commander, the Devourers are using learning algorithms. They're studying our tactics and adjusting their responses. Through the battle, Jake could feel the presence of the other enhanced humans in his mind. Not telepathy, but something close to it, a shared awareness that allowed them to fight as a single organism. They anticipated each other's movements and covered each other's weaknesses with precision. No normal human fleet could achieve, but the Devourer fleet was massive, and even enhanced humans had limits. Ship after ship fell to the alien weapons, their enhanced crews dying as heroes in the vacuum of space. Jake felt each loss like a physical pain, the shared consciousness of the enhanced humans making every death personal. Guardian, this is the Pioneer. Parker's voice was strained but determined. We need to get to their command ship. It's the large vessel at the center of their formation. If we can disable it, the rest of the fleet will lose coordination. Jake looked at his tactical display. The command ship was surrounded by dozens of smaller vessels, all of them firing at anything that came close. It was a suicide mission, but he could see no other choice. Acknowledged, Pioneer. All remaining ships, follow us in. The final assault began with the surviving enhanced vessels diving toward the heart of the Devourer fleet. Jake felt his ship taking massive damage, but the catalyst technology kept them flying even as normal ships would have been destroyed. Around him, his crew worked with superhuman efficiency, their enhanced minds processing information and making decisions faster than any computer. Amy suddenly looked up from her station with excitement. Commander, I'm detecting something in the alien communications. They're afraid. They've never encountered enhanced humans before, and our capabilities are beyond what they expected. The breakthrough came when Dr. Park discovered a weakness in the Devourer command ship's shielding. The enhanced humans coordinated their attack with precision that seemed almost magical, striking at exactly the right moment with exactly the right amount of force. The command ship exploded in a flash of light that illuminated half the solar system. Immediately, the rest of the Devourer fleet began to withdraw, their coordination broken and their confidence shattered. Jake slumped in his command chair as the alien fleet retreated into hyperspace. Around the Sol system, the surviving enhanced ships began rescue operations and damage assessment. They had won, but the cost had been enormous. Of the 50 enhanced vessels that began the battle, only 12 remained functional. Admiral Sullivan's voice came through the communication system, filled with relief and sadness. To all enhanced personnel, this is Colonial Command. You have saved humanity, but at a terrible price. We will never forget your sacrifice. Captain Parker appeared on the main screen, his face showing the exhaustion they all felt. Commander Morrison, Admiral Sullivan, the Devourers will be back. This was just their advance fleet. The enhanced humans need to leave the Sol system and take the fight to them before they can regroup. Jake understood what Parker was saying. The enhanced humans had proven they could fight the Devourers, but they could never return to live among normal humans. The risk of catalyst contamination was too great, and the differences between enhanced and normal humans would only grow over time. Admiral, Jake said, looking at the communication screen, we'll need volunteers for a deep space mission. Enhanced humans who are willing to spend their lives hunting Devourers across the galaxy. Sullivan nodded, tears in her eyes. You'll have them, Commander. Humanity owes you everything. 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of a new ship as the enhanced human fleet prepared to leave the Sol system forever. Behind them, normal humanity would rebuild and continue their civilization. Ahead lay the galaxy, full of Devourer fleets that needed to be stopped and other civilizations that might need protection. The enhanced humans had become something new. Guardians of the galaxy, protectors of life itself. They were no longer fully human, but they carried humanity's values and dreams into the darkness between the stars. As his ship jumped into hyperspace, Jake smiled. They had chosen to evolve, and in doing so, they had ensured that humanity would survive to reach for the stars. It was the greatest gift one species could give to itself, the courage to become something more when faced with extinction.